Okay. There we go. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to this week's Dembo Live. We're going to do something a little different this week. We're going to be discussing a movie. We're going to be discussing The Matrix. And we're actually going to be doing it slightly different. This is the first week that I have a pile of notes that I'm going to continuously look down on because there's so much in this that I wanted to make sure that I got as much as possible without it taking 3 hours. So I wanted to go through and highlight exactly what I wanted to touch on. The second thing, that just an introduction, is a friend of mine has started a program where he's doing, it's a movie program, it's an educational program analyzing Jewish themes in movies. And he actually asked me to record this class and teach it a very specific way. So we're going to be analyzing the movie as we go through. We're going to go through the movie while bringing out the Jewish themes in the structure of the movie. Okay, that's the introduction. Because every movie has a certain structure that it goes through. A certain timeline of the movie. And every movie also has a genre. The particular genre that we're dealing with is the superhero. The Matrix obviously fits into the genre of the superhero. But it's interesting that that particular genre, the superhero, if you take a look at all movies that are surrounded by this superhero, quote unquote, all of them also share a Jewish theme throughout them. This idea of greatness, this idea of being a superhero. Because as we all know, as I've mentioned many, many times, that each and every one of us has the potential for greatness. Each and every one of us really is a superhero. And so the genre of the superhero movie has that throughout. And The Matrix is probably one of the most profound in terms of its connection to major themes in Judaism throughout the movie. Now, granted, an overwhelming amount of Christian themes are also present in The Matrix. We're not going to address that in this capacity. That is not in the capacity of this discussion. And we're not, if at the end, after I go through the topics that I want to discuss, if anyone wants to ask about the Jewish perspective on that, then maybe at the end, put the questions up in the chat room and I'll come back to them if we touch on them. But we're going to be leaving any things that are blatantly Christian as we go through the movie. We're going to be leaving those aside for now. Okay? So let's begin. The movie opens up with an unbelievable image. And the basic structure of a movie is that it opens up with the theme. I'm skipping the opening scene and I'm going right to the theme. The movie lays out right in the beginning what the theme of the movie is. And in the opening scene of The Matrix, there's this unbelievable imagery. And that's the scene where she's sitting in the room by the computer screen and the police officers come in and the agent down on the ground says the officers are already dead. And there's just this amazing fight sequence that leads into a chase that is slow motion that shows you these acrobatic acts that are mind-boggling because they are beyond human capacity. So much so that when they go to that huge jump from one building to the other, the police officer immediately says, "That's impossible," after Trinity jumped and then the agent jumped. All the police officers come to a halt and one of them says, "That's impossible." And so the idea that's being laid out right away in the theme of this movie is this idea that there seems to be this perception that we have that we are limited within the confines of our existence, but yet that there's something beyond that. That those two individuals that just jumped over this building have the ability to break beyond those realms of limitations that we live in. And that was also the opening scene with the telephone. There's this secret that they're discussing. There's something that is hidden that's going to be a general theme throughout The Matrix. And at this point, you're watching the movie, you don't really know what the movie's about, unless, of course, you've seen it before. If this is your first time watching it, you don't even know what's going on. All you know is that what you just witnessed is impossible. And then that jumps right to the next scene with Neo waking up in his room, and there's this bizarre interaction between him and his computer, and the computer's telling him, wake up. And that's obviously going to be another theme throughout the movie. And he answers the door and he says to the person that knocked at the door, have you ever had that feeling that you weren't sure if you were still dreaming or you were awake? You weren't sure what was real, what wasn't real? See, life is all about perception. Everything we do in life, we analyze it based on our perception. And if it immediately doesn't fit in with our perception, we have a tendency, we have a habit to dismiss it. Because we don't like when we don't understand something. But there is so much about life that is beyond our perception. We cannot explain everything. And yet we constantly search for things to explain everything. And if we don't have the explanation, it must be impossible. But yet even science can't explain everything. Even science does not have the answers to all of life's questions. You know, so much of this genre, aside from the superhero, there's also another genre that's being played out throughout The Matrix, and that's this genre of an alternate reality. And that's The Matrix, and that's The Truman Show, and that's this new one, Avatar. And all of them have to do with this idea that there's something beyond my ability that I want to tap into. There's something that I just can't explain, but I want to tap into it. And that is right away, we have to be careful not to immediately dismiss life as, it's impossible. Because we can't understand everything, and yet we always want to understand. And that's why the movie leads in to the next thing, and that's the setup, they call it. The setup where she now meets Neo in the bar, in the nightclub, right? And she says, I know what keeps you up at night. I know what you're searching for. You're searching for him. And I was also searching for him. That's Morpheus. She says to Neo, you're searching for him, but you're not really searching for him. She says, you're searching for something else. And in the movie, they call it the Matrix. But the reality is that's life. Life is a constant search. Every single one of us is constantly searching for something. All of us. No matter whether we think we are or we think we're not. Sometimes we don't even know what we're searching for, as was portrayed in the movie. You think you were looking for Morpheus. You weren't looking for Morpheus. You were looking for the Matrix. You think you were looking for the Matrix. You weren't looking for the Matrix. You were looking for answers. So every single one of us is searching for something, which is why we're always looking for that ultimate vacation. We're looking for the ultimate relationship. We're looking for the ultimate experience. We are constantly searching for something that's it. That'll be it. But the reality is whatever we experience, we always know that wasn't it. There's got to be something more. And that's why extreme sports is so popular, because whatever we experience, we know there's got to be something more to that. And so we got to go for the next thrill, and the next thrill, and the next thrill. And we know that life, as we view it, this can't be all that there is. This just can't be all that there is, because we're constant. There's got to be something more. There's got to be something more, and we're searching for it. And sometimes we don't even know what we're searching for. And sometimes we don't want to acknowledge that we're searching. I've mentioned this to you many times. You get in the car, and the first thing you do is turn on the radio. You got to drown out the silence, because God forbid, while you're sitting in the car, you might begin to ask questions. And we don't want to ask those questions, because those questions, we don't know where it'll lead us, and that scares us, because we don't like that uncertainty. But we're all searching for something. Do you know that the most basic instinct of every human being, from the time that we are a child, from the time we're a toddler, is to want answers? Now, thank God I'm blessed to have 6 children. The first question that all of them ask, every single one of them, is, why? 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 Why that? Why this? Why that? What's that? What's that? They want to know. They want to know. They have this thirst for understanding. They want to understand. They want answers. Every single one of us is searching for that ultimate experience, that ultimate whatever it is. And until we grab it and until we embrace it, we're going to constantly be searching. And that's why the next thing that happens in the movie is what's called the catalyst. The thing that sets up that struggle, that choice that has to be made. And in The Matrix, it's when Morpheus sends him the phone. He's back in his office, and he takes out this phone, and the phone rings. And the phone rings, and now he's immediately got a choice. He's got a choice. Neo has to decide. Does he follow this unseen, unknown, totally beyond anything he's experienced, Morpheus and his world and everything that that represents? Or does he stay with what he knows? He's scared of the agents and he's scared of the police, but he knows them. It's a comfort zone. He's got to make that choice. In life, we are constantly presented with choices, and those choices are always a struggle. They are always the choice. They are always things that are challenging us. They are challenging us to become greater. Do you see, Morpheus, what is laid out right at the beginning of the movie, is Morpheus believes in Neo. Again, I don't want to get into what he believes Neo is, but he believes in Neo. In life, so few of us are fortunate to have an external person, a coach, a mentor. Hopefully it was a parent that believed in us. And that belief in us was not a belief in us that we would just be nice people. Those individuals that believed in us that we could become something greater than what we are right now. Whenever we have that catalyst is something that believes that we can become greater than what we are right now. And Neo has to make that choice. But when he is presented with that choice, when he is presented with that challenge, and now he's running through the office and he gets into the corner office and Morpheus says to him, there are only two ways out. Because in life there are only two choices. There are only two ways out of this building, Morpheus says to Neo. You can either go out on that ledge or you can go in their custody. You can either go out on that ledge and take a chance in life, or you can stay with what you're familiar with. In life, we are constantly presented with challenges. And those challenges are always between something that is telling us to break out of our comfort zone, something that is telling us to go out on a limb or on a ledge in this scenario and take that risk, or stay with what we're comfortable with. And look at what Neo says in the movie. It's such an unbelievable thing because that is so brilliant, because it is so often our response. Whenever we're presented with this challenge, this external catalyst that comes along and says to us, take a chance for greatness, but it's always with something that's a little difficult. And the way we respond to that difficulty is the exact way that Neo responded. As he's going in the office and he's looking at the ledge, the first thing he says is, why is this happening to me? What did I do? Why me? What did I do to deserve this? And that is constantly what we say. Instead of stopping and realizing that life is presenting us an opportunity for greatness. Life is presenting us an opportunity to embrace, because it's unfamiliar and the uncertainty becomes overwhelming. We would rather say, why me? Why does this happen to me? Why can't I just have that nice, smooth existence? And Neo is left with the choice. And that's what leads us to the next thing, the struggle. What is the struggle between those things? I already mentioned to you a little bit of the struggle. The idea between stepping out of your comfort zone or going and taking a risk or maintaining that level of comfort. But it's more than that. Do you see, we all appreciate that we are great. Every single one of us knows we're great. And every single one of us wants greatness. It's so brilliant. Right before this scene in the movie, you are shown Neo standing in his office with his boss. And his boss says to him, "You have a problem with authority. You don't think rules apply to you." Now, but you see, that's a negative slant on something that every single one of us thinks and is real with. And that is Neo. The movie is telling us that Neo knows that he's different. Neo knows that he is unique. The one, as they call it, forget what that represents in that other genre, but for us, the one means that each and every one of us is the one. Each and every one of us is unique. We are not like everybody else. We are different. We do have our own strengths and gifts and talents that unless we cultivate them and challenge them, will be left idle. And each and every one of us on that one side is Neo, saying that we think that we are not like anybody else, and we're right. But on the flip side, what does Neo say when he actually finally gets out on the ledge? And he drops the phone. And he drops the phone, and the first words out of his mouth are, "I can't. I can't." And that's the struggle. The struggle is not, do we want to become great or not? The struggle is, do we want to become great, or do we want to say, "I don't want to fail"? That's the real struggle, because we are petrified of failure. And that struggle is the struggle of the body versus the soul. See, the body does not want to take that risk because it's petrified to fail. I can't, and therefore if I don't, I fail. Whereas the soul knows that it can accomplish. The soul knows that it's great, and it has to choose between the two of them. And Neo has to make that choice. And each and every one of us has to make that choice. And when Neo is presented with the choice, the first time he fails. He gives in, and he says, "I can't," and he gets off the ledge. But he's given a second chance. Not always are we given a second chance, but he's given a second chance in the movie. And he chooses it, and that moves to Act 2. And you know what that tells us? In movies, there's an Act 2. After the hero or the main character, he makes the choice, and he transcends into the next stage. Well, that's also a truism in life. That the only way that we can take the next stage of our life, the only way that we can move into the next stage of our life, the only way we can move into our Act 2 is if we choose, is if we make the choice. I truly believe that the number one fear of every human being is to make choices. We don't want to make choices. We want someone else to decide for us. Because what if I choose wrong? What if I fail? What if I make a mistake? And it becomes so overwhelming that we'd rather someone else choose for us. And Neo makes that choice. And the way he makes the choice is he understands that the choice is the choice of free will. Morpheus sits Neo down when he's about to make the choice, and he asks him a question. Do you believe in fate? That's the question he asks him, and Neo immediately says no. Why? Because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control. That is the central theme when you are talking about the Matrix. One of the most basic themes is control. As Morpheus goes on to explain to him, you know what the Matrix is, he says to him? The Matrix is a prison. It is there to enslave your mind. And I'm here to free it because it is a quest of control. Who controls who? The machines are trying to control the humans, and the humans want to get control back. And that is the challenge of free will. Free will is the epitome of control. who's in control? Is the body in control, or is the mind in control? As the movie would say, free your mind. And Judaism would say the mind is the expression of the soul. Which is it? And you see throughout the movie, what's the very first thing that we saw when we met with Neo? The computer turns on and it says to Neo, wake up. The first step of free will is wake up. Don't be a zombie. Don't walk through life dead, asleep. That's wake up. We have to realize that the only way to live life is with free will. We have to make choices. But then that leads to the second thing. Do you remember back in that fight, in that chase, where she was running, where Trinity was running, and she finally makes the leap and she flies across the air and crashes into the window in the building on the opposite side of the street. And she rolls down the steps and she ends up lying there with the guns pointed up. And she finally says to herself, get up. She tells herself to get up, i.e., take control. Again, take control. It's not just enough to be aware that we have to make choices. We have to actually tell ourselves to make those choices. We can't just be a puppet and rely on other people's choices. We can't rely on choices that we made in the past. We've got to continue with that free will. And then finally, get in touch with this struggle. Get in touch with the struggle that it's the body versus the soul. The body wants one thing and one thing only, and that is comfort. That is what the body wants, is comfort. It's like the next scene, and this is all taking place in the middle of the movie, when Neo has now woken up. And Neo has now woken up, and he's sitting there, and he's fed the food that they have. You know, the tasty wheat concoction, that slop in a tin can. And what's his name? I forget the character's name. He says it's amino acids and protein, etc. Everything the body needs. And Mouse says, the little kid who made the woman in red, he says, it's not everything the body needs. It's not everything the body needs. The body needs more. And he's obviously talking about the Woman in Red program. And he says, the body has desires. And to deny those desires is to deny the very thing that makes us human. And that is the ultimate expression here of free will. Free will is the struggle between the body's desires and the soul's wants. That is free will. And he's right. To deny that the desires exist is to deny the very thing that makes us human. We have to acknowledge that our body has desires. But to give in to those desires, that's not what makes us human. That's what makes us animals. That is the difference between a human and an animal. And that is the struggle of the free will here. Do we give in to the desires or don't we? But that leads us to the next level of free will. And the next level of free will is not we're body versus a soul. We're a spark of the infinite. We are so above just this idea of there's an animal and there's a human. We're in a whole different realm. And that's what Morpheus was trying to teach Neo. He said, you don't understand. You are much greater than all of this. And Neo says to him, what are you telling me? That I can dodge bullets? And Morpheus says to him an unbelievable line. I'm telling you that when the time comes and you're ready, you won't have to dodge bullets. You won't have to dodge bullets. Bullets are nothing to you because we have a level of free will that is so great that we don't even appreciate it. It's beyond this world. It's beyond the matrix. And that is what's going on, this struggle that Neo has to end up choosing, and choosing that side of the choice. And that's why he's offered the red pill versus the blue pill. The red pill, he says, your eyes will be opened and you will see how far down the rabbit hole goes. Because there's so much more than you perceive here. You think you're getting an answer as to what the matrix is. You're getting an answer as to how great you are. But then there's the blue pill. And the blue pill is the comfort zone. And remember what Morpheus says to him? If you take the blue pill, you wake up in your bed and choose to remember this however you want. I.e., you won't have to even remember this. It'll be a bad dream and it'll be gone. Back to the comfort zone. And that is the choice that Neo has to make. And in the movie, he makes it. And that leads us to the next stage in the movie. And the next stage of the movie is the bad guys take a turn for the better. And that's Cypher. Again, obviously, we can see clear what he represents. But Cypher goes, and he is the epitome of the body manifesting itself into a verbalized form. Because remember what he says? He says, when he has the meeting with the agent, he says, I want to go back, and I don't want to remember a thing. Ignorance is bliss. And we all know that ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is comfort. Ignorance is not bliss. That's the Truman Show. Maybe we can do that another time. But ignorance is not bliss. A friend of mine who's a rabbi, he gives an unbelievable analogy to help you understand this. He says, imagine the following. You walk into this massive, massive warehouse. And in the center of a warehouse, hanging down from the ceiling is one of those old-fashioned wire light bulbs. And that's it. And sitting around the light bulb is a discussion. And one says, I think that we're a box to put stuff in. We are just a storage box. And the other one says, we're not a storage box. We're not a storage box. We're a kitchen cabinet. We put food inside of us. Kitchen cabinet. We're not a kitchen cabinet. We are a food storage unit that can keep food cold. And they go around, and all of a sudden, a door opens in the far distance, and the light floods in. And a man with a manual in his hand walks down, and he says, hi, I'm from GE. And I want to tell you that each and every one of you is a fridge and freezer unit. And you can make ice. Let me tell you how. That is amazing. That is the idea. That the idea is that he's like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to just go back, and I don't want to know that I can make ice. I don't want to know that I'm a fridge. I don't want to know anything. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is comfort. But he wants to go back. And then he says in a line that is so brilliant. He says, and I want to be something important. He says, I want to be something important, like an actor. What an unbelievably profound statement. Because one is the whole idea of free will. Free will is understanding who you really are. Are you a body or are you a soul? Are you trapped in the matrix, or can you free yourself into something much greater? The way to identify with free will is to figure out who your identity is to get in touch with yourself. And look what he says. He says, no, the ultimate expression of greatness, as far as he's concerned, is to be someone that is not himself, is to be someone who's an actor, is to be someone that his whole existence is portraying not himself. That is unbelievable, because so often that's what we do. We want to escape ourselves. We don't want to get inside and get to know ourselves. We want to escape, because escapism is sometimes so much more glamorous. As I like to say, the idea of, imagined outcomes are always much more glamorous than actual results. Because, imagined outcomes, wow, who knows what I could be? But actual results, that takes work, that takes effort, and they never live up to the dream that I can paint. Much better, much more glamorous. And therefore, that's what he says, I want to be an actor. And sure enough, he goes and he almost destroys everything. And the next stage in the genre is you think that all is lost. You think that all is lost. Cypher has killed almost the entire crew. The only ones left are Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus in terms of the action people, and all is lost, and he's about to kill Neo. And he says a miracle will have to stop him. And so often when we are entrenched in our struggle, it is right at the very moment when we think all is lost that is especially when we need to muster up the strength to go on. And how many times have you been in a situation where you said, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I don't know how this is ever going to work out. And then you look back 6 months later and you go, wow, I can't believe that happened. Oh, wait, it was impossible? What do you mean you can't believe? It's like the police officer in the beginning of the movie. It's impossible. A miracle happened. Right at the moment when you thought nothing can happen here that's going to be good, that's when it all comes together. Again, if we choose to embrace it. And that's exactly what happens next. Exactly what happens next is the 180-degree turn. The movie started out with Morpheus believing in Neo. And Neo, in the end of the movie, says Morpheus was willing to give up his life for something that he believed in. And now I understand that because I believe in something too. I believe I can get him back. What makes Neo turn into the superhero that each and every one of us can become is if we do exactly what Neo did. Begin to believe in ourselves. That's all he did. He didn't believe that he was what Morpheus believed he was. He just believed in what he believed he was. He believed in himself. And he was able to go back because he decided, I believe in myself. And look what happens in the movie. First, he does indeed dodge bullets. But then, in the end, he doesn't need to. He's able to stop them. Now, that does not mean that if we choose to believe in ourselves, that we can jump off buildings and we can, stop bullets in this world. Because even though Judaism does indeed say that we are in a matrix, this is an illusion. But the illusion is that we get caught up in the body, that we think that this is us. We think that this is what it's all about. We think that this is the epitome of existence. And we squelch the idea that there could be anything more. It's like Cypher said when he was meeting with the agent, when he was speaking to Neo, not when he was meeting with the agent, when he was speaking to Neo, and he says to Neo, Neo, you think you're the one? Well, let me tell you something. If you see an agent, you do what all of us do. You run. Rabbi Weinberg has said so many times that there's a point in our lives when we think we are the superhero. We think that we can change the world. And then eventually we give in to all the voices that keep telling us, one day you'll grow up. But what they really mean is one day you'll give up. And that's what Cypher was doing, and that's what he was trying to get Neo to do. Squelch that desire to be something more. Squelch that yearning to become great. Squelch that yearning to break out of the matrix. And not to settle for comfort. And not to settle for mediocrity. But to strive for greatness. And as Morpheus said so beautifully, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. They're two different things. See, you can know the path, but it's an entirely different thing to walk the path. That is the real struggle. The real struggle is not just in choosing which path. The real struggle is now walking it. And that is the lesson that each of us has to walk away from the matrix. We have to ask ourselves, do we want to give in to the body and give in for the comfort and give in and say, you know what? can't, why is this happening to me? Why so many struggles? Struggle, struggle, struggle. Rabbi, all you talk about is struggle. I don't want to hear about struggle. Or do we choose and embrace the idea that we can break out of this? You see, it's amazing. Morpheus says the following. He says, I know that you will not have to dodge bullets. Why? Because the agents move faster than any human being. He says, but at the end of the day, an agent is bound by laws. An agent is bound by rules that the computer put him in. You are not. And guess what? You and I are also. It's like an angel. An angel is bound by rules. An angel has no free will. You and I have free will. And the only thing that we have to ask ourselves with our free will is, are we going to choose to take the red pill or the blue pill? That's our choice. Are we going to break out of the matrix, or are we going to settle for the ignorance, which is nothing more than comfort? All right. Anybody have any questions? I hope he analyzes, dude, where's my car next week? Thank you very much for that. All right. I don't know if I'm going to be doing that, but all right. Isn't that about Cain and Abel? Dude, where's my car? Or what I was discussing? I don't know. Okay. Nobody has any questions? All right. I hope that was good. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we will continue. And I left you speechless. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will thank you all for joining. Rob doesn't talk much anyways. Jason, how do you know? Thank you all for joining. Yeah, if anyone didn't see the movie, I don't know how you followed, but if you didn't see the movie and you were able to follow, then you don't need to see the movie. There's no need. If you didn't see the movie and you weren't able to follow, yeah, maybe watch the movie and then rewatch this class. But don't waste your time otherwise. And I'm the best trailer. Thanks all. I'm going to stop recording.